what I do. I don't love what I do, but like there's good that can come out of it. I can find the impact, for my family, for the community, whatever. So it's been eye-opening for me. It's a kind of a new kind of area that I'm not well read in. So it's the sacredness of secular work. Jordan Rayner.
You're listening to Ice Cream with Investors, a podcast that is dedicated to teaching you how to better invest your money so that you can live a more intentional life. I'm your host, Matt Four, and it is my goal to teach and empower you to remove the roadblocks to your financial success.
Welcome to the show.
What's up, Matt? Thanks for having me, man.
You got it. Well, we like to start with the difficult questions here. What's your favorite ice cream?
Without a doubt, mint chocolate chip.
Why mint chocolate chip and why no hesitation? I like that.
No hesitation. Somehow I knew you were going to ask that. Somehow. I don't know, man. It's the combination. It's like the rich and creamy, combined with like refreshing. I don't know. I've loved it like since I was a kid, and I've got my kids hooked on it too now. So all three of them are like, I've kind of brainwashed them. Whenever we're picking a flavor, that's their go-to. So, I don't know. It's just been a thing since I was little. It continues today. It's like my guilty pleasure is ice cream. So you're hitting on it.
That's the answer I give. And when I was a kid, I tell the story like my dad always told me, get mint chocolate chip because no one likes it, so no one will ask you for a taste of theirs. And it seems like in the past 3 months, like mint chocolate chip has been the most common answer I've gotten when I've asked that question.
Oh, people are enlightened then. People are coming around.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It works. And a fun hack, if you don't have mint chocolate chip, just get vanilla and then get like a frozen thin mint, the Girl Scout cookie, frozen thin mint, throw it in there, crush it up, and it's probably probably even better.
Oh man, we're getting deep now. You got all the ice cream secrets. Well, tell our listeners, what's the scoop? What do you do today?
What do I do? I'm a full-time investor, focused primarily on real estate. Actually, exclusively on real estate. So a bunch of different strategies within real estate, but I'm all in on real estate and have been for a few years now.
Yeah, well, I know we got a chance to connect a couple months ago. Your story didn't start off in the real estate realm. Take us back. Where did your story begin? And then we'll get into some of the real estate topics.
Sure. I was an Army officer for 10 years. And so we had a growing family. I missed really the first couple of years of my son's life. He's now 9, but we learned we were having twins, and it was I was at like the 10-year mark, and it was at the point where, it's like you either kind of commit to your 20 or you're getting out. And so we made the hard decision, and it was a hard decision to move on and go into the private sector. And didn't know what I wanted to do. I was at kind of a crossroads. I think like so I was in special operations, and kind of like what a lot of my like colleagues did is like, hey, you go back, you get your MBA, and then you go into consulting or you go into iBanking and just have a run at it, and it's just for a variety of reasons, those two things just didn't fit. And, from an impact standpoint, from a lifestyle standpoint. And so that's not what I did. And I'm sure we'll get into real estate, but that was it was kind of like A or B, and I kind of went to C. And so, so after my Army career, kind of jumped into real estate with both feet, working for a local kind of regional developer in Destin, Florida, which is in the panhandle of Florida. So doing smaller, medium-sized deals, custom home building, multifamily, some self-storage, just kind of really head down project management level stuff for a while, just cutting my teeth. And so that was my kind of intro to real estate after my Army career.
So first off, I didn't know you had twins. I'm a twin. Are they fraternal or are they clones?
Are they clones? They're fraternal twins. Yeah. So I have my oldest is a boy, and then we have boy-girl twins that are 6.
Oh, nice.
But, yeah. And they couldn't be more different. It's hilarious.
I was going to ask that. Like typically with twins, I'm a fraternal twin, so we always make the joke like, are you fraternal or are you clone? Because typically with twins, like they're either very connected, involved in the same things, love the same things, or they come to a stage early in their life where they're like, we're going to be different. And if he goes right, I want to go left. If she does this, I want to do this. So have you started noticing that in their personality traits and the things they're interested in, or talk us through that?
Wow, we're jumping into parenting already. They are they're very they play well together, but yeah, their personalities are so different. From like either one's more active, one's less active, one's athletic, one's less athletic. One likes to do the art thing, and one's in the sport. It's kind of like but I think that's where they can kind of still get along to a degree. So I don't know. I mean, they're still 6. They're in kindergarten. So I mean, like we'll see. But
Yeah.
they're a lot of fun. They're obviously, they're all 3 of our kids, and my wife Amanda of 12 years now. It's our pride and joy. So I don't
Yeah.
know, just taking one day at a time right now, man.
Well, I'll tell you, when you get older as a twin, it's kind of cool to think back on your life and think, wow, this person has been there literally every second of my life. So always try to remind them of that. But anyways, back to the fun stuff, real estate. So you're working for this developer in Destin. Did you do any real estate investing when you were in the military, or did you jump out and started working for the developer and that was your first exposure?
It was my first like real like active exposure to like real hands-on, putting together performas and investor relations and project management and asset management, property management, a little bit of brokerage, kind of all of that was it. First, exposure to that. I was invested a little bit in mortgage notes prior to just prior to getting out. It was a retired Army colonel mentor of mine that was doing this real niche strategy that was intriguing, and so I kind of invested with him on the side, just kind of passively, and learned that. And I'm sure we'll get into that, but that portfolio really grew into what the investment fund that I have now. So to answer your question, before the Army, it was really just this very passive, simple, boring structure, this mortgage note thing where I didn't really have to, didn't have to. It was very passive because I didn't have a lot of time with the family and with the transitioning out of the Army and kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. It was kind of like it'd really be a mistake to go into a project that's just going to really suck me in. So I was doing that on my day job, but on the side, doing very passively.
Yeah, yeah. Well, define mortgage note for us, just in case that's a new term for any listeners out there.
I mean, it's basically I mean, when people ask me that, when I talk about the fund, I always go back to like, well, do you have a mortgage? And if you have a mortgage on your home, there's a bank who's provided a loan for you to own that house. So we basically, and they hold a note. They have that, you have a mortgage with them. So we hold a mortgage and a note for our borrower. And the collateral is as opposed to a single family home, it's vacant land. And so we basically serve as the bank for landowners and land investors.
Are you out there buying the land and then reselling it on a mortgage note, or are you just buying the note itself from people who have already originated?
Primarily just buying the note. Yeah, we try not to ever really take title to any land. The whole premise of the fund is really just limit the amount of exposure. Keep it boring. Keep it simple. Keep it boring. No. And so no, we typically just step in as the lender either at the point of sale or we originate, and we have tons of connections with these land investors. So we're able to kind of step in and never really take title to the property itself, just being that first lien position.
So let me make sure I'm tracking correctly. I buy a piece of land for $5,000. I find a borrower who wants it for $10,000. I put them on that buyer on a payment schedule for, let's call it 5 years. Then you all will come buy that piece of paper from me. Basically, you will buy the rights to that
income stream.
That income stream.
Sure.
Which is backed by the land itself.
Man, why didn't I say that? That was perfect.
Well, it took me a minute to get there.
We'll buy those future cash flows at a discount. And so that's the way we're able to kind of capture a yield there. So like, hey, what's the face value of that note? And we'll come in and buy it at a discount and just hold paper, just hold that mortgage note, and then kind of cash out that land investor, And so now the land investor's happy, we're happy with the note, and then our borrower's happy, making their monthly payments.
So just let's get a little tactical here. What are you typically buying the note for? So if the face value is $10,000, we hear general rules of thumb like 50 cents on the dollar, 80 cents on the dollar. What does that typically look like for you all?
I'd say average 70 to 80% of value.
Okay.
Yeah, never over 80, but yeah, generally, if we can get it for around 70, we're pretty happy.
And I think I know the answer to this, but if I'm the seller of that note, the face value is $10,000. Why would I turn around and sell it to you for $8,000?
Yeah, I mean, the answers to that vary, but generally they're not really set up to hold notes. They prefer cash, and it's okay. They're taking a discount. They know that it's all, fully transparent. Like, they just prefer the cash. They can go do more deals. And sometimes they have a portfolio of notes, and they just, maybe they're looking to get out of the whole game completely. Maybe they're trying to, buy a boat. I don't know. Like, they need cash. And so it's like, okay, that's perfect. Let's aggregate your notes. Let's put them into a spreadsheet, and let's do the math on it. Let's underwrite all the borrowers. Let's underwrite all the collateral, and then let's put a value to it. And so it really is a kind of a win-win. I know it's cliche, but like, everyone's happy at the end of the day, because it's really just math. It's really just numbers, and everyone can kind of understand it. There's really not a lot of risk. There's not a lot of like in traditional real estate, there's so many assumptions. I mean, you've looked at these deals where it's like, well, here's the anticipated return. Here's the expected returns, right? It's like, okay, well, that's cool. That looks great. What is that? What are we assuming? Some of these deal sponsors list those assumptions. Some of them don't. But whether they do or not, you've got to pull them out for yourself, right? And when you start going through those, you're like, whoa, those are big assumptions. Like, who knows what the world is going to look like in a year or two or a month? Insurance, is a big one. Interest rate, another big one. Like the assumptions on rent increases, huge. The capital expenses, for some of these big projects. Like, I know they've done it before, but like, who knows what construction costs are going to be? And so those are massive, massive assumptions, and the return projections are based on those. And so we don't ours are like, it's very simple. It's like, look, I know what I bought it for. I know what it's going to yield to the penny. And so I know what I can offer my investors. So I get the question I get a lot is like, well, how are you able to offer, like, this stable of a, return, and we're offering 10%. How are you able to do that? Well, it's simple math, and I'll send them like a sample note. Well, here's what I'm buying, and then they can do the math for themselves, put it in a spreadsheet, do it. And, well, that's exactly how. And so there's a lot of nice alignment there. Again, the assumptions are not, we don't have any assumptions. And it's just pretty low risk. I think I'm getting off topic though. I don't even know what your original question was, but
No, you're perfectly aligned topic in the sense of one of the things. Have you ever read the book Invest in Debt by Jim Napier?
I haven't, not yet.
So he's actually from that Destin area, and he wrote the book. He's passed by now. It's really hard to find because it's like a 1980s real estate investing book. I think I bought it off of Amazon for $40, and it's like a 80-page book. And the reason why I bought it is because everybody in the space just loves this book. And after reading it, I love the book too, because it is just simple math. If I know what the payment is that the borrower owes me, if I know what the unpaid balance is, and I know how many payments are left, then I can calculate the return I want to make, whether it's 12%, 13%, 10%, 20%, and then it will spit me out a number that says you should offer this amount, and that's what your return is going to be. And then I can offer that amount. It's very, very simple, and that's why I love this space.
Yeah, man. Speaking of books too, my partner Eric Shiraga wrote a great book called Lien Lord. So obviously a play off of landlord. He's coming from like the single family rental space and tried his hand at that for a while and did well, but just, wanted something more passive. So it's called Lien Lord. We're willing to send that book to any one of your viewers that's actually interested in it. And similarly, it's a simple book that kind of makes the case for land, for mortgage notes. And he actually has a little section in there on vacant land now that that kind of talks about, some of our strategies, but it's kind of like, hey, here's a wide array of investment opportunities, and they're not all bad. Just depends on what your goals are and what you're looking for. But if you're looking for X, Y, and Z, and if your goals are like ours, X, Y, and Z, then probably need to look hard at mortgage notes. I know it's a little weird, like nichey, like you never really heard of it, but like take a look at it,
Yeah.
And that's kind of what that colonel did for me back in 2017 when I was getting in the Army. He's kind of like, hey, I know this is not, because he saw me going down the traditional real estate path, development and all that. And he's like, hey, all that's great. There's a time and place for all that. That is great. Take a look at mortgage notes. And so, so glad that he did. And that's what we kind of encourage other people to do it. And it's not for everyone, but it's for a lot of people.
Well, we have a coaching cohort that I continually make the point that if I could do one thing over again in my investment journey, it would have been investing in debt earlier in my journey. What I mean by that is I believe that you have a financial problem in your personal economy that you need to solve for, and that's your living costs. What's it cost to house you, feed you, transport you, and make sure that your kids are taken care of for their activities and those sorts of things. And that costs a certain amount of money. Once you understand what that is, you should buy existing income streams that match that before you talk about buying Bitcoin, Dogecoin, this new development opportunity and things like that. Those things are great. But to your point earlier, there's so many variables there that you can absolutely hit a home run and you can absolutely go broke. Why not just buy a securitized payment stream that's backed up by collateral, that's monthly, it's consistent, it will cover that portion of your personal economy. And then once that's taken care of, you can go make your bigger bets.
Dude, I love it. I think it's just wise, right? So when I was in development, and still am, but development is really, it's risky, it's hard, it's time consuming. It's not fun if that's what you're depending on. But if you have if you have a cash flow over here doing well and kind of keeping, here's the stability side of things. Well, now you can take, you can have more fun. It's like now you can pick and choose which projects you're doing.
Right.
And so, and you're right, to start with that and to kind of build that cash flow up and kind of, okay, now I've got security. Now we can be selective on what strategies we're going to do over here. What operators am I going to go with? What geographies am I going to do it in my hometown, or am I going to do it, across the state? And you have options now, and you just have breathing room, and it's just so much better from a, headspace, to approach it from that. But too, I think people, it's just that it's like the get rich quick. It's like people are like, well, shoot, how do I double my money the fastest? It's like, there's a lot of ways. Are you concerned about the risk? Like what, so yeah, I like the slow build. It's, again, boring, easy to calculate, that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. I want to ask a couple other questions that you mentioned earlier about underwriting the borrowers and underwriting the collateral. So let's talk with the collateral first. We are talking raw dirt here. There's no building on it. There's no boat ramp on it. There's nothing like that. Typically, people in this space are looking at just raw dirt. So, Quinn, how do I even begin to underwrite the collateral of raw dirt in the middle of nowhere and versus the middle of Florida where you are a booming state?
Yeah, well, we could talk for days on this. I think if you knew nothing and you didn't want to take the time to hire the right consultants to do it, you would just hire an appraiser, and he'd go out there and he'd say, hey, the as-is value is this, and then he or she might put thought into well, here's the development value, here's if you entitled it or if you subdivided it, now here's the kind of the appraised value if, you force this appreciation. But short of that, if you did want to, get your hands dirty a little bit, yeah, you're talking to land specialized agents to give you their, broker opinion of value. It's another good start. You got to make sure you get a good solid survey, make sure it has physical and legal access. You got to check the box on those things to determine the value. Obviously comps is a sold comps within the last X months is a huge indicator. And so we hire consultants we do our own research, and then we kind of triangulate. It's kind of like, well, he said this, she said this, we think it's this. Here's what the data says. Now, what do we all think is the true value? Because that is a tough thing when it's vacant land, because it's, sometimes the comps are few and far between, and so yeah, it takes a little. It's art and science for sure.
Do you have specific states or regions in the country that you look at over others or have a preference to?
I prefer the Southeast regions. I know you're in Nashville there. I'm in Florida. Like I grew up in Atlanta. Like I'm familiar. I'm comfortable with like the Carolinas and Tennessee and Texas all the way through Florida. Like I get it. I understand the value. The job growth and population growth are just like off the charts, as we all know. Like, so I prefer that, those areas, just because like I look at those I'm like, shoot, I would like to own that. Like personally, like that's kind of, ooh, look at that. I could, me and my son could ride dirt bikes out there,
Yeah.
So, but we don't, like, I'm pretty agnostic though. Like if it's a deal, like we talked about earlier, like it's just math. So if like if we underwrite the borrower and their collateral, like, and it's in Washington state, I'm kind of like, I don't really like the cold, but, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. The Southeast is specifically where we like to play. We typically don't go west of the Mississippi. I understand it, except for Mississippi. Like, I don't know what they're doing over there, but we understand it, like it, we live here. So talk to us about the borrowers. So how do you look at specific borrowers? Because in this situation, you are the bank. So you get an opportunity, I would assume, to like run credit checks and do things like that. But how do you underwrite a borrower?
Yeah, I mean, it's really like a threefold. It's a credit check, it's a personal guarantee, and it's their down payment. That's what really gives us assurance, and that's between those three. We get our peace of mind. Like, hey, your credit isn't great. You need to bump up that down payment. Hey, your down payment, you can only afford 15, 20%. Hey, your credit better be up, or you better have and we'll do a personal guarantee. So, I mean, it's really those three, and then we kind of the subjective side of it is like, we want to know their story. Like, well, what's the deal here? Like, what is it? Why do you want this land? Who are you? What, let's talk, let's have a conversation. So, I mean, it's no different than like a bank would do when they're looking at, who their borrowers are. It's kind of like, all right, what's the deal here? Obviously with a house, like, well, shoot, I want to move into the house. But with land, there's different stories. Like, well, I'm a custom home builder. I build one, mini mansion per year, like we just did one. It's like, hey, it's in North Carolina, this nice HOA subdivision right side of Wilmington. And that was his story. He's like, I need this land, but just for a short period of time before I get a construction loan. I just, don't have $600K like tomorrow, but I want to do it, and so he's a borrower. Or it's like a hunter, in Oklahoma who wants 70 acres to hunt with, enjoy with his family, and it's like, all right, what's your story? He's a business owner from Texas that blah, 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 it's kind of like, okay, that's all helpful. And that's, obviously that's kind of, like after the fact, like, let's do the hard and fast, like, let's do our checks. And then, but at the same time, let's get a good sense for like who this guy or gal is. So it's, again, it's a lot of data and a little bit of kind of art to it.
Yeah. You mentioned like a 15 to 20% down payment. What's the average down payment
that's average.
These notes?
Yeah.
Okay,
20.
15, 20.
Yeah. Just 20. 20 is pretty average. Like yeah.
And then what's your average unpaid balance that you're typically targeting? Is it like 10 to 15 or is it 600?
Total unpaid balance. I mean, no, ours are probably, I'd say average is like, let's just call it 100K.
That's a lot higher than I see in the space. So you guys are finding some pretty good land opportunities then, because typically what I've seen in this space is like, we're going to buy the land for 500. We're going to turn around and sell it to the neighbor for $5,000 on a 3-year.
No, those borrowers, you got to be careful with those. Those are
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah. the collaterals, I mean, if it's like desert square, middle of nowhere, California or Arizona, I'm kind of like, like I want a property. I want my collateral to be something that I'm proud to own. Like maybe I will have to own it one day, like
Yeah.
we do the bigger ones. I mean, I didn't think that was big. I thought, I think we're kind of in the medium size, and that's where we like to play. Not too small, but like not too big. We like the diversification of, multiple deals, multiple geographies, multiple borrowers, and so on. But yeah, it's sub 100, but kind of somewhere in that range. But if it's too small, I'm just, I don't, it's usually not for us.
Yeah, I mean, when you've got a 100K piece of land, for instance, and somebody's put 20K down and paid on it for 6 or 7 months, I mean, they're invested at that point, right?
Totally.
It's not something they really want to walk away from.
Yes.
Whereas, yeah, some of these strategies I've heard where it's like they sell it to the neighbor for $5,000, the neighbor puts 1,500 down, so the seller ended up getting 3x their investment. Okay, but $1,500 is pretty easy to walk away from. 25 gets a lot harder.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And that Oklahoma guy, it was $200,000, so he put down 40,000, 20%, and like I don't know many people that are walking away from that. He makes a few payments, like he's likely our guys will pay it off early, kind of just move on to the next one. But yeah, that's kind of the range we like. That's kind of our sweet spot.
Have you? I'm assuming you all have had to foreclose on land in your portfolio at some point. Like, what does that process look like? Because in the single family space or in residential, I guess is a better way to say it, there's judicial, non-judicial states and things like that. What does the process look like for land?
Same.
Okay.
Depends on the state, which determines the kind of the process, but generally it's the same. Yeah, you're kind of giving an opportunity to the borrower to kind of cure, like let's catch up. We're pretty flexible when it comes to that. We want them to keep the land. Like we don't want to take it back, but if we have to, we will, and we'll list it for sale again and either sell it for cash or generate another note. Yeah, it's really no different. I mean, in the same way that you would take a default in the single family space, it's no different.
Yeah, that's what I love about this space. I mean, you just mentioned being creative. Is that when a borrower gets behind? I mean, you, Quinn, are the bank, so you get to decide. Hey, Mr. or Mrs. Borrower, we can throw 3 payments on the back end of this as long as you can start paying again. We can modify yours down $100 a month and extend you out for a couple of years. Like, there's so much creativity you can do to rehab a note or to get it back performing that I find interesting in this space. Whereas, if I stop paying Bank of America, they're going to come for my house because they have all the leverage and zero flexibility.
Right. Bingo.
Where are you all finding notes today?
Hey, fellow investors, before we dive into our next segment of the show, I wanted to take a quick moment to talk to you about a fantastic opportunity for you to invest with me. As you know, here at Ice Cream with Investors, I'm passionate about real estate investing and helping you navigate the exciting world of wealth creation through real estate. And that's why, for the first time, I'm thrilled to tell you about an opportunity for you to invest alongside of me. Over the past 3 years, I've been investing in multifamily, mobile home parks, car washes. I've even become the bank and lent out money to fellow real estate investors on a short-term basis. And now you can come join me. If you would like to jump on a call and learn more about this opportunity, head to icecreamwithinvestors.com/invest and find a time for us to connect. And now back to the show.
I mean, it's really just word of mouth. I mean, we've done very little like networking marketing. Both Eric and I have been in the space for years now. And so we've, kind of rubbed shoulders with some of the top guys and gals and entities in the industry. And so it's really like, kind of established a credibility in the space to like, hey, they know we're going to do what we say we're going to do. We're going to close fast. Like hopefully we're, decent to work with, and so it's really, really just word of mouth, so like we might do a few deals with a certain entity and they're like, hey, talk to these other guys that are doing these subdivides out in North Carolina. Like they need some help. And so you kind of just figure it out. It's just kind of been snowballed. So, we have plenty of deal flow. And right now we're on a good kind of growth trajectory where you never at no point do you want to have too much deal flow and not enough cash, or not enough, too much cash and not enough deal flow. Kind of just keep those kind of growing steadily together is, I think, the most prudent strategy.
We've spent a lot of time talking basically about performing notes, and performing notes just means a borrower is paying on time as per the loan agreement. But an interesting part of this space is buying non-performing notes, people who aren't paying on time, who have stopped paying or some reason there, and making them performing. Do you all look at the non-performing space at all?
Not right now. I know there's opportunities there, and I know that there's the returns can be excellent. It's just not. We prefer not to take those risks, and we have enough of our bread and butter that we're okay with not going that route. Not to say that we won't, but no, not right now.
Yeah, I like that answer, by the way, because in the non-performing space, you might be able to go buy them for 40 or 60 cents on the dollar, because now you have to chase down the borrower, you have to get them reperforming, you have to go through the foreclosure process, all those sorts of things. And I have a investment right now where we bought some non-performing notes, got them to perform again. Now they're non-performing again. And I don't know if you've seen real estate prices over the past 4 years, but the value of the property that we're inheriting from the borrower is also at a 25% discount. So we're kind of working through some process, and then I'm just an investor in this fund, so I'm not day to day on it, but non-performing is great for returns. It's also a lot trickier than I think most people give it credit for.
Yeah, I know. They look great on paper, but they'll take you for a ride if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So we're steering clear right now. But yeah, if you do it right, there's some people that's all they do, and they're good at it and they like it, and they're trying to create a win, and more power to them. Trying to create a win for everybody, and it's like, great. It's just not what we prefer to do right now.
The last piece that we haven't talked about is servicing the note. So for most people out there that aren't involved in this space, a servicer is somebody that sits between borrower and person and basically the bank, and takes the payments, collects tax information, keeps the AM table up to date, all this kind of stuff. Is that something you guys do in-house, or do you outsource that?
No, that's all outsourced.
Okay. Why did you decide to outsource it? I'm ignorant in this space. I'm just trying to learn a little bit. Why did you guys decide to outsource that?
I just think in general, if you're truly looking to scale, I think you need to look early on to kind of just pay what it costs to for the people that are in their own respective specialties to kind of do what they do. And so, sure, it costs a little bit of money, and we have ways to kind of mitigate that. But yeah, I think it's just one less headache, that could potentially come up, and likely, again, with kind of where our sweet spot is, likely there's not going to be any issues. And so yes, we could do it. Yes, we could save money, but it's almost like if you go to sell your house, could you sell your own house? Could you pay a flat MLS fee and sell it? Yeah, and you could save a lot of money. But I don't know if you've ever, and I've done this, it's you're doing open houses and you're dealing with potential buyers, and it's like, oh my gosh, that agent is worth every bit of the commission that they earn, every bit of that 6%. I'm happy to pay that next time, and so it's similar to me. It's kind of like, look, just let the folks who can do it right. It's professional. I can offload all those tasks. If there's an issue, they handle it, and just pay for it.
Yeah. No. Would I sell my own house? No, Quinn. I don't even manage my own properties. I have a property manager for my own properties. We hire external property managers for our commercial properties.
Good for you.
I had to show. Speaking of that, I had to show the first property I ever bought. I self-managed for about 2 months, because I had to show the property 8 different times at 8 different schedules, and 7 of them were not on time. 7 of them were late. And then I got a call at 10:30 at night one time around the heat not working. And I was like, no, this is not something I want to do. But so speaking of this, it's not a value add task. And I would also think there's some compliance things that you just want to say, hey,
Sure,
they're in
exactly.
charge of the reporting and compliance, not me. So you need to go after them and audit them.
Yep. Always protect the time and the, you know, just the, yeah, I mean, the transaction coordination that they do with, you know, with title, I mean, just everything. It's just so much easier to stay out of it.
Yep. Yep. What did we miss on this topic before I switch you to the last round?
Um, what did we miss? I mean, typically I'll get, typically what comes up is like, hey, who's like the typical like investor? Like who might be interested in this, if it's not abundantly clear already. But I think it's the answer to that would be it's the folks who maybe they've been in the real estate world, maybe they've tried the active approach, you know, maybe they're in the stock market and they just can't stand the volatility of it, especially in the last few years. They have no idea what's going to happen in the future. Maybe they want to divorce like their tie to like the market that's so subjective. You know, it's like, you know, public sentiment goes up and stock goes up. It's like, man, I want nothing to do with that. There's zero predictability. So if you're, I think the typical investor that would be interested in some of the things that we do are a lot like us. Like they prioritize their family time. They prioritize their, you know, their giving. They prioritize their involvement in the community, whatever it is. Time. They prioritize their time. They don't want to get sucked into any one project, and they're okay with boring. You know, and in fact, I've talked to people who are like, I spell all this out, like what we do, and they're like, well, that's not for me. I want growth. I want exciting. I'm okay to take risk. I'm like, wow, awesome. Like we have opportunities for that too, but that's not what this fund is about. And you're unique, sir. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's typically, to answer your question, typically, you know, it's like, all right, well, who does this fit? And it fits those that have those, you know, similar goals. It always goes back to your goals and values anyway. Like, what are your goals? What do you value? Okay, now let's create a solution, an investment solution for those goals, not for somebody else's goals, but for what you specifically need and want.
Love it. Love it. Well, Quinn, I'm going to switch us now to our last round. We're calling this the 4 toppings. Our first one is, what is your favorite book, or what is a book you've read recently that's given you a paradigm shift?
Yeah, my favorite book is usually the one I'm reading currently. So I'm glad you caveated that with like one you've currently, because I forget everything I've read. But right now I'm reading a book called The Sacredness of Secular Work. And I talk to a lot of investors from, you know, a variety of industries, and they want, you know, they're either current investors, they want to be full-time investors, and the story is always the same. They get bogged down in like their tasks of life, you know, at their day jobs, you know, it kind of bring them down. So what all this book is about like, you know, it's about kind of the blend of like the faith, the intersection of faith and entrepreneurship, if you will, and kind of like how we're all called to do good work, and all the work that we do, whether it's mindless, whether we don't love it, or whether we love it or not, you know, we're called to be excellent at what we do, and you know, and sometimes it takes, you know, changing your mindset and kind of acknowledging and, you know, kind of embracing like, hey, what I do, I don't love what I do, but like there's good that can come out of it. I can find the impact, you know, for my family, for the community, whatever. So it's been eye-opening for me. It's a kind of a new kind of area that I'm not well read in. So it's The Sacredness of Secular Work, Jordan Rayner.
Interesting. Our second one is, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice would come from my, so when I was at West Point, I was a cadet at West Point, and we were assigned a mentor. Okay. And it was like a guy, it was an officer that, you know, much older than you, that had like, that was in the branch that you were going into. So I was going into the infantry, so I had an infantry mentor. And so like some of the best advice that he ever gave me, which I remember to this day, because he knew we were about to graduate and we were going to go on to go to Ranger School. We were going to go to infantry officer basic course. We were going to go to airborne school, and then we were off to our units and likely being deployed. So like, man, you're about to go, and you're about to do these schools, and you're about to do these courses. You're about to be in charge. And so his advice was like, it's not, and he knew like we had the capability from a physical standpoint, mental, physical toughness. Like he knew we were likely going to be successful and like do okay or do well, right? But he was like, it's not how. He was like, it's not. I don't know if this is. It's not. Anyways, he was like, it's not. If you're going to be successful, it's how you did it. It's how you're being successful. So it was all about like how you complete the task. So he didn't. He kind of knew that. We kind of knew what he meant. So he's like, are you accomplishing these things like with integrity? Are you helping others along the way? Are you keeping your priorities? Are you keeping the faith? So it's like he knew we were on like a good trajectory. So it's not if, but like how are you, how will you be successful? Like what did you do along the way? And so you look back, it's like, okay, I made it. Like I accomplished my goals. Well, how did you get there? Like what did you do? So I think a lot, that was true in the military and my early career in the Army. Kind of thought about that through those 10 years and the ups and downs of all the things that went on and deployments and stuff. And it's so true in entrepreneurship. It's like, man, I think I'm on a good path. And like we have certainly ups and downs of successful ventures and real estate developments and so on and so forth. Like how did you do how did you conduct yourself with excellence along the way? And so I don't know, it's a simple, but yeah, I think, I don't know, it's not like what, it's not the what, it's like the how you got there,
That's what I'm hearing, is the how matters as much as the what.
True. Yep.
Our third one is, what are you most proud of in your life?
Yeah, it's probably, family. I think just being in the Army was challenging. My wife was just like the best supporter ever through, my son's, her due date for my first son was on our deployment date. So like I was able to push back my deployment for a week and then deploy, and I was gone for 4 months on that one. And all the while my wife is, at home with her newborn. It's like, man, that's a rough way to start, but she's been with me from the very beginning through all the deployments and training cycles, and now through these entrepreneurial ventures and the journey that it is. But I guess what I'd be proud of is just like, I'm proud of her. I'm proud of the family for kind of just keeping priorities, and just having, good priorities and trying to do things well, all along the way. Again, it's like, we'll try to like do well and succeed in whatever we're doing, but like let's always go back to what are the true priorities. Like if everything else fell away, at least we have our family, we have our faith, we have our, like this stays solid. It has to. So I guess that'd be what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, we're gonna have a conversation offline about family values and how you kind of handled that, because that's something we're still trying to work to define in our family, and what does that mean, and how do we institute it, and all those sorts of things. I bet you've got some good wisdom around that. Our fourth and final one is, if you could sit down and eat a bowl of ice cream with anyone, dead or alive, would it be, and why?
Dead or alive. I would. I'd go back to like World War II days. A German theologian, Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
Okay.
He just has a phenomenal story. Author, theologian. Kind of ran these secret missionaries, secret ministries, underground stuff, and then ultimately he was imprisoned. He was executed, all for his faith, kind of in the face of like Nazi Germany. Like he never wavered. Like he had his priorities, he had his faith, and he was all in. He was committed to death, And so I think it's like a great, like it's modern day example of, of like a martyr, someone, a martyr for the faith who like, man, they, it wasn't lip service, right? I mean, he was in it. And he was a hero. So man, I think sitting down with him with a bowl of mint chocolate chip would be a pretty phenomenal. Hear his stories.
I'm a big fan of the World War II era, getting Shep involved in it every single day, and he can now remember battles and some people and like
Cool.
all that kind of stuff. I had no idea you were going to say a German theologian, and I've never even heard of this guy, so I'm going to have to take a look into his story.
Oh man, yeah, heck yeah.
Story I've never heard of. Well, Quinn, thanks again for the time. Super valuable to me. If our listeners wanted to reach out to you, learn more about you, learn more about your fund, where is the best place we could point them?
Probably the easiest way is LinkedIn, honestly. Like if you just go on LinkedIn and Quinn McArthur and you kind of just search for me, let's connect on there. And then from there, like depending on where you want to go, we can talk about the fund. If you're into boring investments like me for cash flow, or if you want to talk commercial real estate, we can go that route. But let's connect on there. And then, but I mean, you can go to the website, the fund's website's legacylandfund.com.
Awesome. We'll link those in the show notes. And then,
yeah,
Quinn,
appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Matt. Enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to Ice Cream with Investors. If you like what we serve you here, it would mean the world to me if you would like, subscribe, and leave a review on your favorite podcast app.